everyone, I hope you're all doing well. There were a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you guys about regarding last week's discussion board posting and the creation of the scales that you guys made. So the first thing that I wanted to address with you was there are several things that many students needed fixing, and so I want to address kind of everything just in general. But I did reply when I was giving you feedback on your grade for each individual more specifically, so make sure to take a look at that. But in general, there's a couple of things that stood out to me. The first and foremost was the age question. So when you're asking participants about their age, there's a couple of ways that you can do it. The way that I probably recommend that's most effective is asking their age and then just leaving a blank, and then they can write in their age. Many people broke it down and did, 18 to 25, 26 to 30, 31 to 35, kind of thing. And that's fine, but one of the problems with doing that, collecting data that way is you can't figure out, like, for example, the average age with something like that, because all you have is a category and a grouping of ages. So if you ask them their age and leave a blank, then you can get more data from that. So you could calculate the average age of your participants, you could calculate the lowest age and look at the highest age, you can calculate a median, mode, things like that. So that's usually my first recommendation for age. The other thing that I saw a couple of times was numbers that overlapped. So I'll use age as an example. They would say 18 to 25, 25 to 30, 30 to 35, 35, and so the numbers overlapped. And so if you were a 25-year-old, would you mark 18 to 25 or 25 to 30? Right? So making sure that the numbers don't overlap when you do have like those category and those groupings of numbers. The other thing that I saw quite a bit of were double-barreled questions. And so you might ask something like, are you sad and anxious? Yes or no? Well, someone can be sad, but maybe not anxious, or vice versa. And so if you have two questions in one question, then that's what's called a double-barreled question. So we want to be very careful about asking two questions in one. There was another issue with several of you guys listed, several things that could be applied to someone. Many different things could be applied. So you needed something that said, like, check all that apply. And so if you are looking at what type of, sex ed training students should receive training on, right? I think that was one of the ones that kind of stood out to me. STDs, condom use, things like that. You would also want to have check all that apply because parents might want multiple things in the sex ed training. And then the only other thing was there were several of you that really used the Likert scales very well. And so Likert scales can be very helpful for us to gauge a participant's level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. So for Likert scales, we want to really make sure that a couple of things, that it's a balanced scale, so that it has two negatives, a neutral and two affirmatives, or two negatives and two affirmatives, right? And having a 4-point Likert scale. Something like that. And then the other thing is you also want to always tell your participant which direction is affirmative and which direction is negative. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most satisfied you've been, how satisfied were you with the survey, right? And so you always want to tell them which direction is affirmative and which is negative. So those were just a couple of the notes. Again, I was more specific in my comments for each one of you and gave you more specific feedback for each one of you. And so I hope this has been very helpful. Thank you guys so much. Keep up the great work.